They're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
I want to touch on this topic because all the men are rapists. It's like all the men are rapists. One rapist is going to call another a rapist. He was accused of being a rapist, and he's calling other people rapists. But if you look at it on the surface, and then if you could even point it out, like in reality, that there's truth to that, then you wouldn't stop there, right? As far as like, the scientists and people that examine these problems, like such as I'm not all here today. I play a game. Okay, the psychiatric field, who's pissing me off to no end because they want to put things under genetic when they're not genetic at all. They're religious indoctrinations. But one of the things that we have found out over the last, decade or two, that became more of a top topic is the Catholic priest sexually abusing boys. And what happened in the story today, there was a 37-year-old, which is a millennial, which we pay attention to every little portion of this thing because the millennial came up at the time, right, just a couple of years right after us. So we're pretty close we're on the cusp. So we had the same parental upbringing, within a 6 to 10 year span right there. And that's the height of satanic panic when the Christians were pushing off the pedophilia stuff, which they were promoting, onto some random imaginary devil, right? And they all got like sexually abused in some which way, shape, or form, or some form of child abuse. There was like all these terrible things in this portion. And so we've been trying to go through it. And the portion that matters is that first, 6 to 10 years of their life right there. And so if you're a millennial and you came up through satanic panic era, you got some problems. You got some problems. And Gen X is 10 times worse. So, and so they're just the follow-up sibling. And so we have this 37-year-old I'm assuming they're Hispanic because the name is, what's the name here? Edgar Hernandez Perez. I'm pretty sure he's Hispanic. So anyway, one of the top crimes that these Hispanic males, when I was a child, were doing was whipping it out. And I was talking about this. I go, I don't know if those are cartel dude. I don't know what the hell. When we were roaming out here, there was tons of criminals, like white guy, everybody, right? But one of the top favorite that these Hispanic dudes were doing, one of them was in a red Trans Am and pulls his car over, and then he's like, hey ladies, and it's like a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, right? These two kids. And he just whips it out, opens his car door and just whips it out in the middle of the day, no care in the world. And then there was other times we were walking down the street and then they did this. Okay, well, it shouldn't stop there, right? When you're looking at this problem, because you have to ask the question, like, what in the hell is going on here? And why in the hell would you do that? Right? And most of those guys were probably illegal at that time period in, what year was that? Okay, 92. There was quite a bit of things going on out here. It was really easy to get fake IDs. You could go down to, what was it, Alameda, somewhere, and get a whole new ID, right? And I would say that the majority of people were not criminals. Okay, so Trump's running on calling them all criminals. However, this is very prevalent, this problem, not only here, from white men, and they're Christian, okay? Categorically, most of them here in America are Christian. In Mexico and in, our ancestors' area in Italy, they are Catholic. And one of the things about them is they were outed for molesting kids for eons. And they did this study, and it was really interesting because when they're asking kids, I want to talk about all the problems of the study. I used to love going through these studies. I mean, this isn't even a funny study. This is like an actual, like they did something like this, but it's totally flawed. And I'm going to point out all the flaws in it. But this was like in 2008. So in It's in Mexico, right? Okay, yeah. So, prevalence of childhood sexual abuse among Mexican adolescents. And obviously, they're no different than American citizens. They just have a more predominant Catholic belief system to Christians, which is pretty close to the same. It's just that Catholics love like pedophile art and glorifying actual dude, like idolatry, like some little similar things. But and also I was raised, well, I was baptized Catholic, I was raised as Lutheran, which is like this middle ground type of thing where it's like kind of on the skirts of Catholic, but then it's also like Christian. It's just whatever. But our church was totally different than anybody else's, so we didn't have these like really extreme viewpoints anyway, as is. But they still taught male supremacy regardless of anything. Both those things do. So it's actually important to kind of understand that both those religions teach roughly the same problem among males and females. So the females don't come forward, they have to submit to these idiots. And then in addition, they kind of ignore the males getting sexually molested. And for them to go out and do these conducts is because it's being promoted or being done somewhere, which way, shape, or form, probably from their daddy, anything. Because one of the popular things, they were having their sons getting raped before 18. And in their country, their age of consent was, ooh, I think very low at 12. Let me see, because of the Catholic thing. Hold on, I gotta. Okay, on the Wikipedia page. This is important stuff because the way that they made these laws were from Christians and Catholics, and they didn't go by agency. They didn't go by love. They didn't go by anything like that. They were like, oh, they could have a kid at 12. Yeah, I mean, about as ridiculous as that. Based on, okay, so Mary was a child, and so they glorify and normalize children popping babies and being with kids. And they never were against pedophilia. They were against having sexual relationships before marriage. But obviously, it's like a different story for men. But that they can't. So they started skirting around like the general way of how we think of sex, right? And they thought it was okay if it was like male on male, or if you do other things that were not that one specific action that could lead to a kid. So they started doing very obscure behaviors, like behaviors because of it. And this is all religion based, and this is part of mental health, and they refuse to see it. It's like literally in your face, like what the hell's going on here? But the men dictated that they want to be with some kids because they're the ones attracted to them in order to make these laws. Like, I would never make a law for 12-year-olds, even if I thought that's how it was supposed to be. Or so, I don't know. It's just like, I'm not into 12-year-olds. So obviously the men are attracted to kids to put that crap out here. So they normalize it for these children, and they were getting sexually abused regardless of the law. The law is really disgusting. They were getting sexually abused as children throughout this portion. So they talk about it, and it says each Mexican state sets the minimum age of consent for sex outside of marriage by statute. Okay, see, outside of marriage. Marriage is part of the human trafficking history, just letting you guys know. It's about ownership. Okay, so anyway, these vary between 12 and 15. They're still kids, right? So now they're getting sexually abused as kids, even though the states are setting this up on kids and they have no consent. So the federal government set an age of 18. I was like, hi. And there are statutory rape laws that prohibit deception and often seduction in order to have sex with a minor over the minimum age of consent. For example, Sinaloa, was it? Okay, set the minimum age at 12. So they're pedos over there. But why? So like I'm saying, you got to look at, oh, that came from Catholics. The Catholics, their indoctrination. So the church itself. So the shock of them touching kids is absolutely ridiculous, right? Like you look at that and you're like, oh yeah, they're pedos. I mean, oh, I'm shocked they're touching young boys. You know what I mean? Any of this crap. But anyway, so they said the Catholic, they said for 12s, they want 12-year-old kids. And then, but presumes that any sex between an adult and a minor under 16, 16 still a kid, is statutory rape. And sex with a minor over 16 is also prosecutable, though usually only at the request of the minor or the legal guardians. How ridiculous is that? That one's stupid as hell. But anyway, yeah, so I guess maybe because of the federal government 18 thing. So anyway, they were sexually abusing kids all throughout Mexico. That's just what you need to know from it. I mean, that's why they would be going on this way. It's like they got sexually abused. They'd be just whipping it out. So why would they be whipping it, doing this kind of conduct? Well, as you see with the Catholic Church in particular, they do not like women in positions of power. And the women must submit to them and listen to what they say. And when you have men running around touching each other, it's just like, how does the boy even know what to tell you is wrong? I mean, there's just a lot to it. So they did in the study, I'm going to jump back to the study just because I had to do the pre-thing on, oh wait, I'll go to this. Yeah, so it says most Hispanics identify as Catholic, though this is a declining trend. The reason why it's declining is because people are getting more educated. Whereas at the time of, I'd say like in the 80s and prior, whatever, none of us were educated. And they kept saying like, you could consent, kids. You could say no. It's disgusting. So they were basically promoting that it's totally normal. In that promotion of saying that you could consent, they're promoting it's totally normal for adults to be attracted to children. That's the messaging you got without even being flat out told it. So they were going on this. They were all into kids. They had no problem with this at all. So Jeffrey's just going on in his way, Epstein, he's doing his thing. You just don't understand. Some people don't agree with the fact that he likes children. Yeah, this is their argument. And this was their argument with the atheists among me. But what I love about it is that these atheist men, as I've spoken of, they're actually indoctrinated still in their religion. And then they're like, I just don't go to church anymore. And I'm going to fling out some religious crap on you ladies. Yeah, it was just so stupid. I was like, these guys are so dumb. They're so dumb. And so is this psychology, the whole thing on mental health. I was just like, I can't even deal with it. It's like, its basis is Christians. Like, oh, we're the normal ones, and therefore everybody else is psychotic. I go, no, it's actually in reverse. Let's take a look at this. Where's the basis of normal? I was like joking on this on this other thing, because they're trying to sneak in there that these things are genetic. And I'm like, they're not genetic. No one was born with this bullshit in their brain. You have to be taught it. You have to be taught it. And it's just like for them to even sit there and play stupid about it. It's like predisposition. I go, well, even if they were predisposed, whatever, with having no soul, they have to have the addition of like their thinking, right? These the doctrine, right? The way that they're thinking in these rules and laws, these things have to be in addition. So this is like other layers on top of things. Like you could be schizophrenic, but you would never go out and slaughter a bunch of people. But then you get these guys, and they're these total Nepo babies, entitled brats that got everything since day one in America. And then they have this big fit. They're not used to not having something. You know what I mean? It's just like this type of mentality where other groups don't have that. Let's see. And they go shooting up the schools. They're criminals. Why are you saying that? Are we seeing all these Hispanics shooting up the schools? No, they typically shoot up each other. And so I was like, pretty much. Like, they don't typically just run into a school. It's like, I'm just going to massively slaughter just a random group of people. Now, they mean cartel, things like that, when we're starting to talk about those things. But Italians have the same problem. We're talking about the mafia stuff. There's nothing cool about that. And a lot of Italians really wanted to separate from that type of conduct. But in it, when you're trying to look at the answers for that thing, it goes right back to Catholics, the whole religion thing about it. So it creates gangs. It's like just part of all that crap. It's like part of all that crap. So it's the same thing. You got cartels, you got mafias. It's like, Anyway, Yeah, so we have the same issues in our culture too, right? Over there. Yeah, they don't like me at all pulling that stuff out because that's a huge part of their belief systems, but they're a hot mess, right? Yeah, they're a hot mess. I just love it how you could wear a cross and go murder a bunch of people. It's just crazy, right? Okay. But then you're talking about power play, right? So when you're talking about financials and everything, like what we're seeing with these oligarchs, it's all that. Like the Pope is the oligarch, okay? He's like skating fine, okay? The rest of you are suffering. I was like, the rest of you are suffering. And they're just giving you bullshit. He's just some dude in a robe who actually committed a sexual crime by putting his mouth all over kids' feet and women's feet in the open. That's a sexual abuse. The fact that they don't discuss this stuff is insane. And just people will sit around and watch it and go, I'm like, this is insanity. You let this man put his mouth on your kid's feet? Do you not understand that that guy is totally turned on by it? And you let some dude do this to your kid. Okay, so yeah, these are these people. So the education also is like, I went to a school in Mexico, and this is for junior high students. Oh my God, can you guys think back to junior high? Think back to junior high, come back to junior high. What the hell did you know in junior high? I'm going to tell you, most of us would not even be able to verbalize all the sexual assaults that we had happen by that point. It would have been minimized. This is normal. Oh, these guys are consenting. Blah, 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 blah. And then some kids wouldn't even want to answer it. They would probably lie on the thing. Nothing happened. But what could you even say in junior high? Because you only know what you know, right? You can only know what you were taught up to the point of junior high. And it's not going to be much because they do not really deep dive into these topics. And when they did, they only talked about not getting pregnant and you could say no. I believe that was about it. Like they didn't talk about people touching you and pulling your skirts up and pants down or anything like that as being sexual misconduct. So they asked these kids, and this is in 2008. So they're only going to answer the way that they know what they know, only what they know, but it doesn't tell you much. The prevalence of child sexual abuse was 18.7%. Do you guys believe that? Every time I go back to my junior high time, I'm like, oh, actually, there was about a million other things that I just totally overlooked. Now that when you get more educated and you keep going back, you're like, oh, yeah, I was totally atrocious. In fact, I was like this, that, the other. And it's like, did we do something that was inappropriate? Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Okay, so it's like back and forth, right? Like you probably did things and then you got things done to you. That was totally normalized in that 80s portion. So they go 18%. Yeah, anyway, so it was more frequent in girls at 58% than boys at 42. Okay, so here we have a problem. While it seemed that way for many years, right? Because the males never said anything. But as we were going through stories, mostly on that frat housing thing, oh yeah, that's my favorite topic now. I was like, because we're guilty of frat housing, like, so I was like, oh, I love this. Okay. But we didn't do what they did. Like, honestly, when I was reading their stuff, I go, I never shoved bats up my friend's yin yang. What is that? And so what happened was the boys normalize their sexual behaviors on each other and don't see it as a sexual assault. And then some may see it as sexual assault, but then they may not come forward because they know that they'll get made fun of. Maybe they were made fun of, going, don't be a sissy, calling them a derogatory and trying to degrade women at the same time terms. Or they just didn't know because there's no conversation on it. It's just like, this bad thing happened and I'm humiliated and that's that. And then if you ask them like the question, like, were you sexually assaulted? They might go, no. Just because of the action itself is not in the typical way that they were trying to teach sex ed, that it's done in a different way. And then so therefore that's not sexual assault. That's something else. Or the ones that think that they get blamed because of the church. They're getting blamed because of the church. It's not because of your normal whatever, anything about you. You're getting blamed because of the indoctrination that you put yourself in it. And then they keep saying this to kids and adults, and then the kids pick it up as well. So then they may not say anything. So I would actually think, because of what we're seeing, that these numbers are roughly close to the same. I don't know if you would see boys being sexually abused more often. They may be. It's like a maybe. They may be, and that's why they're a bunch of rapists, right? And doing things like whipping it out, doing this conduct that you don't typically see women do it, but they do the top thing. Okay, yeah, if they start doing that to little kids or anybody else like that, they too are just as guilty of the whipping it out crap. And we pointed out Tommy Lee with this garbage there doing that to kids. Yes. So I don't know if his dad did that. I do not know. I know on the Maryland one, his dad was sexually inappropriate because they mentioned, he said it and like they're joking about something, but it's like a serious thing. Like it's a serious thing, but they're making a crack out of it. Like he said something about his dad was carrying around a naked picture of his friend, of Twiggy or something. I don't know, something of that nature. And I was like, do you have something else to say there? Did your dad touch you, dude? Do you have a Kevin Spacey dad? Maybe. Maybe. So I'm looking at it and I go, see, those are the things where they're like, oh, ha, ha, you know, and their dad's all like sexually inappropriate to their own son and their friends, right? So I'm just looking at it. So it's probably way more common than what's even being said, because a rapist is a rapist. It's a mindset. So why would they not do it to their own kids? Because they have no line. They think there's nothing wrong with this. So they had been doing it. To what extent, you know, like what types of abuses they're doing to them. Well, I just know from the one team, they were just like, a 12-year-old can say no. And I'm like, you're disgusting. No wonder they never did anything in our stuff here. And then you go into it even further, and then you see they were with minors at some point. And I was like, oh, okay, so they gave us so much information on these people, like a lot. And then they said they're Christian and they were raised in a Christian household with a pastor parent, which you know how that comes out. Like we've heard so many bad stories about the pastor's kids, the ultra strict. Yeah, it just depends. It depends on who they are. So the sexual abuse involved physical contact in 75% of those cases reporting abuse. The aggressors were neighbors. 50%. Mexico, 50% of those people were neighbors. Do we have neighbors? Perverted neighbor. Well, the dad, the one guy was the dad that had all the porno mags underneath their bathtub because they had the clawfoot bathtub. And he just left it in the open for his like 8-year-olds to even get to it. I was like, oh my God, it's disgusting. So yeah, that's actually really inappropriate, sexually inappropriate. Like, why would he do that, right? Just generally, it's almost like, I don't know. I don't even want to think about it. Like, I'm so irked and grossed out from that little situation right there. But I didn't get touched by him or anything like that. But I don't know about the daughter. It's disturbing. Without getting into that, no, I don't, no, or not when I was a kid, no, thankfully, no. Okay, when they say neighbors, like, are they in homes or are they in like apartment complexes? Like, is that a big thing in Mexico? Like, I don't know. Is it more prevalent in a single family home, or is it more prevalent in apartments where there's more people around where they can take advantage of the kid? I don't know. Like, I kind of think that's important too, because if they're more prone to be around more strangers, I don't know. Anyway, relatives, 36.8%. You guys should be horrified by that number, and you know it's low. You know the number's low because they're not all reporting it properly here. 36% are relatives. Okay? It's really important because if you start seeing tons of them doing inappropriate sexual misconduct, the area that I'm saying that people are refusing to touch, or they're normalizing the sexual, you know how it takes a long time before you come out and you even realize like what happened? Okay, a lot of kids were sexually abused by family members or other relatives, and they still to date say it's normal, like nothing's wrong with what happened to them. Okay, so they're in this place, so they wouldn't answer this thing at all properly. So that's what's left out of this thing. But 36%, 36.7%, there is a high number for relatives to be touching their own family members, and strangers at 13.9%. Unfortunately, in my story, that is about 99% of our cases as strangers. 99% of the cases with my thing are strangers. They're adults came up to me and then introduced themselves and did a sex crime. If they didn't even introduce themselves at all, just dragging me to a lot. The majority of them are strangers. Even in the human trafficking ring that we reported, those are strangers. 99% of them were strangers. So what does that tell you? What it's telling me is that your relative is coming into my job and sexually abusing me. That's your relative. Your sexually abusive relatives. Your sexually abusive neighbor. It's all the others, right? When they say this happens within the family and people they know, yes, so all the 99% of the strangers are those people that you guys are talking about, and then they come over here and then they go harm strangers. That's the true dynamic of that whole thing right there. Okay, abuse was committed through deception. Yeah, 90% of the cases. You don't think. Deception. Yeah, hey, you want to come over to my house at 2 a.m? Sure. Oh, you don't know what's going to happen here. Okay, so of the cases and involved physical mistreatment in 10% of the cases. Of the victims, 14% had spoken about the problem and 3.7% had taken legal action. That's not a lot at all, right? So that means the rest of them are all rapists. And then so this is a part I have a problem with in the mental health field too. So these people now are traumatized. Like everybody in the story, the victim and the perpetrator have mental health issues now, okay, from being harmed. And then now the perpetrator obviously did from something prior to this. So when they do that, then they harm a new victim. Now, this victim is kind of a crapshoot of where they're going to go. I think the determining factor in the victim getting harmed is also needing to include the environment and like their upbringing of like where this can go, and perhaps the enjoyment factor about what's happening, because that actually happens with kids where they don't know it's wrong or something like that, and then they can become perpetrators. So it's just, this is kind of a little sketchy area of like when they do and when they don't. And we've seen families where like this similar abuses were happening to the two kids. One turns to a perp and the other does not. Or maybe the other has some issues, but they, try to tackle those issues. They're definitely not perfect or anything like that. So, that area right there is kind of funny. But yeah, they if they normalize it and everything, then they'll go and do it to everybody else because, whatever. It's just like the whole frat housing thing. Oh, we all do it. Okay, so then at that point, like, they may stay attracted to children because they're sexually abused as a child. So we're looking at that area, and I go, the one area that we really need to really high focus in is these ones that are going after kids. But as you're seeing, when this area, they're all getting sexually abused as kids. And then, they have like several different, how they kind of like think it comes about with, groups of them in this area. So then conclusion, this is where they came to the conclusion, and it's just like, I don't know, none of this. You couldn't even come to a conclusion from this thing. I mean, you could look at it and it kind of leads you in a direction, but as I'm saying right now, I look at the number 36, I'm like, it probably is way more than that, and it's just that they're reporting. And then to say it was more frequent in girls, I'm like, I think more girls are more prone to say something than it would be boys who normalize it and rape everybody, right? The ones that go rape everybody, isn't this totally fine? We're gonna do this. And also, I think I have the right to do it because I'm a Catholic, and these women need to listen to me, okay? So they keep promoting that kind of crap. And so we're targeting that. I go, yeah, it absolutely, the mentality is in this bullshit right here. So then in the and then doing drugs. Okay, so the drug thing is not, you're not born, snorting coke. You may have some issue because your parents did drugs while they were pregnant, but nobody's like born sniffing coke. Okay, so it's like you have to be exposed to this crap somehow. But even still, the problem with those people has to do with mentality. When you start going into the mindset, and then you go into the mindset of what happened prior, and it's traumatizing. Like, there's some stuff here. So there's some areas right here, but it really is in this crap right here when you're talking trauma, upbringing, because one person could have very similar backgrounds, but their thinking's totally different. And you both could be doing drugs, but one becomes a major addict because they don't give a shit. Like, they just have a different outlook on life. And it could just be because they were degraded the whole time growing up, whatever, and the other may not have been degraded, but they still had the same similar abuses. They both could have been raped, by their parents. But there is definitely a mental difference among these people. And I was kind of just saying, I go, yeah, I mean, at a point when they decide they want to go sober, their mentality has to change, and it has to go to the areas like where the sober people are. So eventually they could get there. It's just, it wasn't there. And so if it wasn't there, then it's dealing with their upbringing right there. Whatever was going on. They're trying to just make it, I don't know, they want a pity party, I think is what's happening right now. Like, it's pretty much what they're, when I did drugs, I started raping kids. I'm like, that's not what happens. I don't know where this crap is coming from. There's no drug on earth that turns you into a pedophile. It doesn't turn you into a rapist. It doesn't turn you into a pedophile. You're doing the drug because you have serious mental health issues. And it could be because you're a victim of that stuff. It could be just because you're a monster. You're a freaking monster. Mostly these narcissist guys, that is one of the traits that they do have. So I don't think that they're actually tackling that problem properly either. They want a pity party. Oh, you're just genetically predisposed. So you're just, are you doing crack? Okay. And you doing human trafficking? You couldn't help yourself. It's like, this bullshit. It's absolute fucking bullshit. Okay, but one of the main factors that they've been missing here is the Catholic thing. And when I went to go look at the Mexico thing, yeah, they had a ton of priests that were getting busted. So they didn't really tackle how many of these kids were actually sexually abused by anybody. Where's the pastor thing? How could it be that it was all neighbors, relatives, and strangers? The pastor would fit into someone that they know, but that's not a relative, and it's not a stranger, and it's not a neighbor. So that falls into a person in a position of power, like a teacher. So they don't even have this in this study. Isn't that weird? But this is in 2008. It's a very haphazard. You couldn't really go through this that well because it's just like the number of boys, it could be 100%. 42%, like, they're trying to say 18% overall, which this is just absolute garbage. I mean, this is just garbage. Because we had so many incidents just growing up, like each year I'm at a school, like an incident happens, right? By somebody, some kid on me. It may not be something that you look at as major, but it was an incident. And then the following year, another incident, another year, maybe a couple incidents, and another year it could be tons of incidents. And then, so you're talking about multiple incidents, here, there, the other. Like the lifting up your skirt, grabbing your butt. Oh, that was a big one. All these people used to grab people's asses and just grab their chest and everything else, all these people. And then no one ever reports it. So now they don't have any data on it. Like, where's this? I go, they're all a bunch of rapists, you guys. I go, I'm telling you, I went to school. I was like, I'm telling you, the Gen X is awful. Some of the things we did were awful. I'm just saying, I'm looking at it on a whole, like the crowd, the circus, right? Everybody involved, and how many different things were going on where, this person did some really terrible things that I never would do. And then, and then we did some things over here. And then all these other people did stuff to all of us. And so, I'm just looking at it, I go, oh no, it's just a back and forth thing throughout this whole, area right here. And then none of us had a lot of parental guidance, because the parents were busy either with tons of other kids or your parents worked. And then, as my other friend, their parents were like never home. I was like, I'm pretty sure she doesn't have parents. I had to joke about this, but it really isn't funny. It was like literally, I don't know. I mean, I stayed the night over there and there was nobody there. And so she basically kind of lived the most of the time alone. I mean, the mom may have stopped in for a couple hours. I have no idea. And I rarely ever saw them. So they were neglected. Like there's a huge neglect. And then so therefore they have a detachment with the family, right? They're not connected. And so then you'll start seeing these serial killer things out of some of these stories, but not in our circle, hopefully not. But in some of these other cases, just because the abuse may have been really bad, or a number of other issues there. I'm not going to argue about any genetic things on those things, but I still do not believe that even regardless of any predisposition of genetics, like the playing factor would be something in your environment to get you to tail off to this other garbage, such as movies chronically showing women getting choked and slashed and degraded and calling bimbos and dumb. Oh God, if you guys remember TV from the 1980s, that was awful. And then they just randomly would take off their shirt in the middle of something that should have never happened. And you're like, I don't know what the hell crap this is. It was just like soft porn for men, Christian men. Because the majority of the public was Christian. So this is what they're wanting. I'm like, I don't know what the hell this is. And I'm like a young girl watching it. And I go, oh God, this is so degrading. You need to just deal with that shit. I was like, I ain't dealing with none of it. I want to sit there and see these dudes stripping down too, if they're going to be going on like that. Like, it was like this weird thing. See, but they're teaching male supremacy, regardless of you not knowing it or not. You're just little. You're just sucking it in. You're sucking in the visuals of it. And so a lot of these men have very serious, very, very serious narcissist issues. That's on top of everything. Like the narcissism has to be there, like on a level. But I can't debate if they would actually be clinically diagnosed as that. I would clinically diagnose them all as that, going on like this. I'm just gonna whip it out, man. My ego. Like, I don't care. Who cares about rules and laws? I could do whatever the hell I want in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard. And then LAPD doesn't do anything. LAPD at the time would actually try to arrest the little girl for the guy doing it, going, you guys are doing a sex crime. I'm dead serious. Like, you don't even want to be around it, because LAPD would not even look to arrest the guy. They would think, oh, you guys are, committing, a sex act with a child, okay, who has no control over what this dude is doing in his car. It happened several times. And for us kids, we're just like, I don't even know how to deal with this. It's just like, what? We did not at that time. But this guy gets arrested for it, and I'm offended. Because we could have got like 10 million other guys. They should have been arrested, right? How old are those guys today? Well, those guys, I would say a lot of them, because we were kids here, their age ranges were in that 20 to 40 range. So figure they're probably in their 60s, 70s, 80s today. And they would still be committing sex crimes. And they just got away with it. Or maybe they were finally getting caught. I have no idea. But yeah, a lot of them are like these older guys. Yeah, those are the ones that sexually harmed us as kids, right? When you're looking at your childhood portion right there. These old men that are in our government, that age right there, these older men are the ones that were whipping it out. Doing things like that, right? And when you go into their history, it's like massive child abuse. They taught them to not have emotions, which are creating sociopaths, which that is the definition of a sociopath. All these things about it. And so they were like, oh, boys should be sociopaths, and that's a real man. Like, by definition, that's what they were doing. And technically, these kids needed to be ripped away from their homes. I don't know what the hell's with this neighbor thing. Because that's a high percentage of neighbors. I don't know why it would king the relative thing. And then what the hell with that? I don't know, but this is Mexico. It just may be the way that their housing is. I have no idea. That one is like throwing me off a little bit. In the population study, the prevalence of child sexual abuse was greater than that reported in Mexico City, 4.3 to 8.4%, although it was similar to that found in Spanish child population. Are you talking about in Spain? 15 to 23%. Okay, all these places are predominantly Catholic, and they're predominantly into child porn. They typically are. If you ever see their artwork, it's really bad. It's so bad that I was like, they allow this on Instagram because it looks so bad with some adult man with this toddler, this little baby male, and these are imageries that are not as predominant in the, like Christian, like Baptist. They might show the baby Jesus, but they don't have like tons of pictures of adult men touching little baby boys in this way that is creepy ass. Yeah, it's pretty bad. And so it gets sort of normalized. But Michael Jackson had that artwork all around. That's what they call it, gray area porn. They call it gray area child porn. But if you call it gray area child porn, they don't say it for the Catholics, but they have the most gray area child porn out here. Male on male. And it's I'm like, yeah, that thing right there. We didn't actually have that in our home. Like the imagery, things of that or anything. Nothing like that. It's disturbing. Anyway, the risk of sexual abuse is greater for girls. So they made this conclusion. The risk of sexual abuse is greater for girls. I don't even know if that's true. Like I said, as I was going through stuff, I was like, oh my God, there's all these cases. Men are just touching each other. And then they're like, it's totally fine. Well, that doesn't mean it's greater for us because they're not saying that that's sexual abuse. They're just not saying it because they're idiots and they think it's totally normal. So they just let other people sexually abuse them. And then because they think it's normal, then they do it to us. And they're like, what's your problem? I didn't do anything wrong. Okay, do you see it? It's in this weird freaking dynamic right here. And instead they start degrading us because they're narcissist bullshit over there. And to sit there and say, oh, I'm actually a victim. It's just like, we're never going to do that. And the principal aggressors are male neighbors. I don't know what the hell with this study because... And then don't move by men. I was like, then you don't have any male neighbors. I will say at my last place, the guy that moved in at the tail end, actually both these guys, there's two of these black males, okay? And also when you look at different groups of people, you have to look also at the religious upbringing and the historical thing that was going on there. So I was even talking about that where it was like, abuse like travels generation to generation. It's not predisposed, genetic thing. It's like, oh, they were slaves and they got the shit beat out of them, by white dudes. And then this becomes a normal, reaction and behavior, the abuse dynamic. And so then therefore you should actually see more abuse coming from people that were massively abused because they didn't have therapy. Like they didn't have therapy then. So when World Star Hip Hop came out, they were glorifying beating the crap and child abuse. And it should horrify you, but it should also make sense. It was like this weird thing where I'm like, you know what? That probably is from slavery. Because I heard somebody in the community say something about, I think it's from the slave owner. Something like that. And I was like, oh, I never thought about it like that. And then when I went into inside the some other thing when they were talking about mental health issues, they were saying that they have very specific mental health issues that are different than anybody else who wasn't like a slave to the white man. But white women were slaves to the white man. But in the context of, being, they were doing household chores too. You know what I mean? They were like, iron my shit. But in the context of what they were doing here of lynching and treating them even as a lesser, they have very specific mental health issues that other people don't have. And so therefore the white man cannot relate, and nor would they want to, of them causing such trauma in a group of people. It's kind of like that. Same with the Jews, right? Like they had the situations happen in Germany that they have very specific trauma from the Nazis, right? And where other people don't have, that. They may now because of ICE, but just having these situations happen where even their their children could not relate to. So their children may be out here going, oh, my mom went through this. And then they're just the biggest narcissist a-hole ever, right? But they didn't experience it. And that may be why they're a narcissist, because the people that went through that trauma, I don't think that most of them even got therapy. So then they became parents, or they were parents at the time. And so when they're raising kids with major trauma, and it may not be purposeful, right? Like some of these actions, but like raising them with trauma, they may abuse their kids in a way or do something with the kids where they don't come out proper. And it's just from trauma, right? Like the trauma through this. So that's what I've been looking at. And I was like, yeah, when you start getting more and more information, then you can tackle these topics better. I'm still trying as much as I can with it, because me reading this now, like if I read this maybe 10 years ago, I might have sat with it and been like, oh, but I still would be questioning the neighbor thing. But those two predators next door to me at the other place were totally outrageous. I mean, it's the most disgusting stuff ever. One's a human trafficker, and then nobody arrests him for it. And then he gets arrested for something else after he moved. It was like he moved and then he got arrested for something else. The other one that came in was purposely trying to have everybody there hear him have sex. It was so disgusting. And there were children there. And I talked to the mother and I go, yeah, they're doing this thing and it is absolutely insane. Like I was taping like this and then you could hear it, which means that everybody could hear it all around. And then he gets confronted on it and he's like, there's nothing I could do about it. I was like, no, there totally is. I mean, they're purposely doing it. It's not, oh, this is just going on. You can kind of hear that. I was like, no, they were purposely doing it to be psychotic, because he was like the biggest narcissist dude you could ever meet. And the other lady was laughing how we were talking, because he would chronically just, if he was wrong, he would just make up crap to try to say that he knew more than me. And then I don't let that happen in conversation. So it becomes this thing. And then finally he's just like, he's a guy that wants to live in the cheapest place ever and pay all this money to own a Tesla. It doesn't even make sense. He pays more money on the Tesla than the place he rents. So he wants to be seen because he's a narcissist. He wants to be seen, a big time narcissist. But you have to ask why he's a narcissist, right? What was his upbringing? His mother, man, what the hell is that? It's like living next door to P. Diddy. That shit was, it was really bad, to the point that it was causing me mental health issues. I mean, it was that bad. It's like, you cannot even go on like that. It's just disgusting, and it's just being violated purposely by some dude. And then you can't even, like, there's no particular laws, like, where you could do noise laws, but they tried, one of the neighbors tried, even on the other people there. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. They don't do anything. I mean, to the point that it was like all night long, 1 in the morning, 3 in the morning, until like noon in the next day. And I have to be in the middle of it, like, to all this bullshit. And it was just, no. And it's because the place was illegal. Like, that's another thing about it, is that it would have never happened in that way had it been up to code, right? The whole thing about it. So I was, and then I tell the owner, I goes, absolutely no way. And I cannot be sitting in my house and then like 20 million girls are getting human trafficked in and out of the property. And there's children here and the feds are going to come and take the place down. It's just going to happen. And you don't want to check. Like, here's the thing: people might go, "Oh, why did you call a check?" Like, here's the thing: people might go, "Oh, why did you call a fit?" It's like, because did you see what they did to Diddy's house? Like, they don't care if you're the innocent person on the property. They're gonna freaking come in and pull guns on every single person on the property. And I'm just like, get them off the property now. Like, get him out of here, you know? But don't do illegal conduct to remove somebody. It's like, get them because you bust them. I mean, you know? But they actually started lying. There's just all kinds of crazy crap. I could go on about it. But no, and it didn't involve any Hispanics. The Hispanics that were there were totally fine. They were totally fine. And they happened to be Muslim, actually. The Hispanics that I knew, they were Muslim, which is interesting, right? Um, they didn't categorically fit the typical. I don't know about their parents. Their parents might have been. I know that they go to Mexico all the time and go visit. So maybe the family there is Catholic. Maybe they became Muslim here. I mean, they could be Muslim there, I guess. It would be out of the norm, like the average, but yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I didn't even ask them though. Do they have problems with women? Absolutely. I was like, absolutely. They actually hold the same ideology as Christians. If you didn't even bring up like which religion you're in, you will have a difficulty in trying to figure out who they worship. But when you talk about the same topics that Christians do, they say the same exact thing. You know, like, I'm the man, women are like this, blah, blah, blah. And then they're anti-gay, they're like this. They were like, oh, we should do a thing together on YouTube. I'm like, hell freaking no. With three like Muslim, like this other thing with me. And I'm like, oh, this would be the most unfair round table, because all three of them are just going to be a bunch of misogynists and go on about how disgusting it is to be gay. Okay, so they're going to go on this thing, and then I'm going to be just debating for men. I'm not a gay man, so I'm going to be debating for gay men, you know, this garbage, and then I have to go into attacking their religion, right? Their thoughts in their religion, and then it's not going to come out well, because it could be three guys gang banging up on me in a debate. It wouldn't be a fair debate. If I had three people with me on our side and three on theirs, then it would be a fair debate, you know, in a round. But no, they want to do that. You know what I mean? It's just their egos, right? It's like their egos, right? Right away, I was like, yeah, no, it's not good. I don't mind, you know, tackling the topic like that. I really don't. But the perception of the public will chronically always, you know, they'll go with the, oh, he's totally trashing her and she's all wrong. What YouTube actually promotes on their channels. So to make a lot of money, if you just sat there and trash women all day, you'll make a shitload of money. And that's what they did. And they actually coded their site to do that. And they did, in fact, mute people talking about Jeffrey or any of these other guys. And TikTok did some bullshit too. They're very anti-female. If you didn't know that they were, then you didn't talk on these topics enough to know better. But one day I mentioned something and it wasn't even bad. This is a weird thing. It wasn't even bad. It wasn't my typical, like, you would think I'd get in trouble for the things that, some things I say I know would sound extreme to some other people because they're a bunch of male supremacists, extremists, that me just saying women are just like everybody else is totally extreme to them. So, but I said something, I could only think it was something to do with, they were something about cops, and I go, well, no, sometimes the cops are the predator, perpetrator, something, right? It was not even a controversial topic. It's just like, some of them are, even the DOJ said. And then somehow it got muted, and I'm like, excuse me? Yeah, so then they wouldn't even let me talk about it. And then I went to go look at who's in charge. Oh, this is where the magic comes in with these jerks. Okay, so these are all of like the Jeffrey Epstein universe of friends. And it's not just Jeffrey. You guys are missing the entire plot to this whole thing. But I just felt I wanted to tackle this topic because even if it's like therefore true in the portion that you could go immigrants or rapists, right? If you want to even fling that kind of crap out, you cannot disregard that white men are rapists. And if it is in fact true, then there's a deeper problem going on, and then therefore we need to look at it. And what we already know is religion. So they already got outed for all the priests touching the little boys. It was really important on that thing. And I go, you know what? If in fact there is any like stereotypical truth to that, then the truth is you need to go further. You need to look at that further. It doesn't mean because it's an immigrant group of people that they're terrible. It's like, oh no, we have to look at the ideology that the country's running under, which we already know Catholics are absolutely atrocious. Even in Italy. Oh God. Italy has very similar things going on that we're dealing with here. They have very similar things going on over there. And I was like, man, I didn't even know it was that bad. Like I was going through some stuff and I was like, holy crap, no, I would not want to go there. No, I mean, I would go to visit, but I wouldn't, it would be like dealing with this. They actually get along in their mindset. I don't know how Northern Italy is doing right now. I don't know anything. I just know that when I mentioned her family thing, I believe I had an attack by one of them because I was talking about, I think they're two different groups of people, but I think they confuse it with that group of people, and that group of people who may have confused it are absolute extremists. Like if you're talking about MAGA, oh, they're like the MAGA of Italy. And on all their pages, it has them with baby boy. Oh, it's disgusting. And they came at me and they're like full blown extremists. I think it was them. And I was like, I don't even believe it's the same group of people. And then my family member was like, oh, you gotta be careful because they all got like, they use the same names and terms and everything. And then it gets all confusing to everybody. And yeah. And I go, oh yeah, I guess. But oh my God, I watched some videos with that and I was like, oh crap, no. And they were like, oh, no, you guys, it's really bad. It's actually politically on the political spectrum. Yeah, they have the same problem, but it's under Catholics. So this is under Christianity here. So they have the very similar dynamics. That's why you'll see the same problems because technically it is the same. Because when you're dealing with mental health, it doesn't care what religion you are. If it's promoting mental health issues or causing mental health issues, it's going to be the same across the globe. Like it doesn't matter where it's at. That's why you see the same problems in every freaking country. That's why you see cult leaders popping up everywhere because that's actually coming out of a mental health issue. So it came first before any of this bullshit. Like I'm going to create this religion for you to join into my cult because it's some narcissist dude that thinks he knows it all. It's this whole thing about it. But they, yeah, it's interesting because you'll see it all the time. And then part of nature is the monkey see, monkey do. And then you get called followers. Right? It was interesting. That's why I said it's interesting to study the human nature and then the why in the wild. The monkey thing is interesting. Mostly when they did that story on that other monkey thing. And I was like, yeah, the monkey was like killing babies, but it's not like it went, I don't think it set out to kill like other monkey babies, but it went to go get a monkey baby and then took it away from the mom and then just left it. And then the baby died. And then so all the other monkeys see this other monkey doing it. They don't even know why. And then they all started doing it. And then they started killing off all the babies of this other monkey clan. And I was like, oh, that's totally, okay, so that's human nature. So they all join a cult. Like they all joined a cult. And they don't even question it. They just jump in there. They're like, he did it, so I'm going to do it. Pretty much, yeah. So that portion is, I mean, I guess genetic. That would be part of, that's just human nature to follow the leader, I guess, for no reason. It's like monkey brain.